Okay, cool. I have two queued up, but
Okay.
I think I have a priority of them. So.
All right. Well, I just started recording. Shall we get started? All right. Great. Well, actually, why don't we, Susan? Do you want to start out with kind of a tech prep, or should I do an intro first?
No, I can prep folks real quick. Okay. So, hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us, the 6 Feet Photography Project and Between Us. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the Zoom space to make your time here a little more enjoyable. So, when screen share comes on, so let's just start. At the bottom of the thing, you're going to have a mute and stop video at the bottom of your Zoom window. We ask that you stay muted. If you want to think about and ask some questions, roll your cursor over a little bit further. You're going to see a chat window. If you click on that, your chat options will come up on the right side of your screen, and you can just start typing questions in there. We'll come back to those when we have a chance. And then please remember that we can see you if your video is on. We don't want to go to the bathroom with you. We don't want to have dinner with you. So just if you turn your video off, people are often scared that that will make them leave the whole call. It won't. So feel free to do your private things in private. And if when Annie and Cactus are showing full screen, remember you have full control over where you can move those video thumbnails. You can grab anywhere in the black area, click and drag, and you can move it out of the way and or just minimize it. There's a little dash in that video thumbnail area, and you can actually turn off all the video thumbnails and bring them back if you want. So, and if you have technical questions you can't hear or you're lost in the process, feel free to send us a message in the chat window and we'll privately chat you back and try to help you solve your technical issues.
Okay, thanks, Susan. So yeah, we took a little bit of a break with Between Us, and now we're back. The break was intentional. We were actually scheduled to do this talk several weeks ago and decided to hit pause because there was this emerging momentum with the Black Lives Matter movement, and we all decided together that it wasn't really an appropriate time to be making a lot of noise unless it was making noise for that particular cause. And so we've kind of hit pause for a little while. I didn't do any Between Us for several weeks. We came back with a community meetup that some of you are at to kind of discuss this next phase of the 6 Feet projects, and feeling good about moving forward. And for the most part, I'm going to continue Between Us the way I've been doing it. It's not going to be weekly anymore. It's going to be now bi-weekly or generally bi-weekly. We'll see how things come together. But the thing is, some of these ideas, you know, I really want them to be well thought out, and if that takes whatever time it takes. So I want to kind of make sure that I'm bringing content that will really expand our ways of thinking around our practices. So today, I'm really excited to talk with two people who I really look up to. One of which I've known for many, many, many years. He goes by many aliases, most known by his kids and family friendly hip hop alias Secret Agent 23 Skidoo, but I know him as Cactus, so I'm going to be calling him Cactus for the purposes of this interview. And I'll let him introduce himself in a moment. And Annie Tritt, a photographer who I've been aware of for the last maybe 4 or 5 years and really been inspired by their work. And I'll let them introduce themselves in a moment as well. The reason I brought these two people together is they both have worked with kids specifically and in and around themes having to do with identity, self-expression, and individuality. And I've also heard them both express a lot of nuance within these topics that I think often get kind of overlooked. I think as a society, we really value conformity Yet, as a society, I think most people would say they value individuality. You know, people say, yeah, sure, being an individual is a great thing. Yet society really, I mean, if you want to get ahead in life, just look at the person who's doing the thing that you want to do well and do it like them. That's pretty much the formula for success. So I think it'll be interesting to break that down a little bit, talk about the nuances of individuality. So let's get started with, I normally do introductions for people. I decided, for the sake of this being a piece about individuality, I'm going to let people introduce themselves. So Annie, why don't you get started and tell us a bit about yourself?
I thought you were going to do cactus first. I'm a storyteller more than a photographer. I'm known as a photographer. I work as a photographer, and I've been doing that for about 15 years. But the reason that I work is to tell stories, and at the heart of it all is really showing people's humanity, so that so that the person can see themselves reflected in a way that is beautiful and true, and that we can come to those images and stories and see parts of ourselves reflected and feel empathetic, and also maybe learn from those stories. So yeah, I think that's who I am.
Okay. Cactus, who are you?
Well, first off, I just want to say, if you're looking up at me, or looking up to me, and I'm looking up to you, then what does that mean? Are we just like looking across at each other?
I guess so.
Well, I'm looking up to you, my friend.
Thank you.
And I also thank you for turning me on to Annie's work, because I'm also looking up to you. I think what you just said there is exactly what I saw when I looked at your work. It's you really open up right into the soul of a person or a place, and it does tell a story, and you do really feel it, beyond your eyes and beyond your mind. You really feel it. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I'm Cactus, also known as Secret Agent 23 Skidoo. I've been writing rhymes, performing, producing for about a quarter of a century. And for the last 13 years, primarily, I've been creating hip hop in the family space. And that's because my daughter, Saki, AKA MC Fireworks, turned 5 and started to develop that kind of mentality that kids develop around that time period, where they're still completely and totally connected to the universe, but they're also able to put it into words. And I just realized at that point that I wanted to hang out with her as much as possible, and I wanted to create art for her, and that involved her, and bring her into the world that I loved so much, and bring what I loved so much into her world. And we created an album. Originally it was just going to be for her, but along the way she got involved and really enjoyed it. So then she became part of that project as well, and it was really wonderfully lucky turn of events, and we ended up on tour for about the next 7 years together. Played Lollapalooza and the Smithsonian and the Winnipeg Folk Festival and all kinds of places. And I've really just enjoyed working in that space because it's limitless, just like the minds of children. And it's complex and beautiful and intense, just like the minds of children. And I've kind of gotten to define what the parameters are of what I do, because when I started, I was pretty much the only one doing it. So that's nice, speaking of the individual thing. John Cage, I read a quote that said, if you want to become the head of your field, the fastest way to do that is to invent a new field.
There you go. And you have certainly become the head of your field. I mean, you are a first Grammy nominated, and then a couple years later, Grammy winning artist for kids music, right? Is that the title of the category?
The children's recording, but yes.
Nice. Cool. Well, let's kind of jump right into the meat of the subject matter, individuality, because Cactus, I'd love to hear how that has evolved for you over the years. One of your first kind of like breakout hit songs with 23 Skidoo was Gotta Be Me, which was very much just like speaking to this idea of owning who you are, being yourself. And I'd like to know, one, where that was coming from your own life experience, and what difficulties you may have had growing up expressing yourself. And that can kind of maybe transition into how that idea through the music has evolved or changed over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting aspect that I deal with all the time, that I kind of keep coming around to, because it's kind of it's like a cognitive dissonance thing for me, that I feel like my tribe is the outsiders, you know? Like, I feel like when I grew up, I always felt very different from everybody who was around me. And that kind of gave me this outsider perspective, outsider looking in, that I think really gave me the perspective that allowed me to write the music that I write and create the art that I create. And those are the people that I really feel close to now. That's, you know, a common story with a lot of musicians and artists and poets and, you know, generally beautiful, wonderful weirdos that I meet. But they started in a place where they didn't really feel very connected to anybody because they felt very different. And I don't know, that's kind of a chicken and the egg situation where maybe you actually do have something that really makes you different from the people around you, inside of you, or maybe you start out just like everybody, and then a situation happens where somebody perceives something as different and calls you out on it, and then yourself and everybody else involved perceives you that way. Either way, the effect is the same, where you basically feel like, you know, a singular individual that is separated from the mass consciousness. I mean, of course, I couldn't have put it in those words back then, but that was something that I felt, you know, every day from when I really started understanding who I was. And, you know, at times it was interesting because I got to do my own thing and not really care about it. Like, I got to be a skate punk and an artist and, you know, use my own weird lingo and rock my own style and feel like that's just who I was. But of course, at other times, it's like super uncomfortable to be that.
Yeah.
So one of my primary purposes, especially in the beginning phase of my family music, you know, when my daughter was 5 and I just saw all these kids emerging into that same type of consciousness where, you know, maybe they would start to realize that they were different. I wanted the music to be right there to remind them that that's a beautiful thing. It takes a lot of people years and years to understand that.
Yeah.
So I was trying to write the songs that I wish I could have heard back then, basically. And yeah, it's been a continuing theme for sure. You know, recently there has been that balance of understanding that individuality is one of the things that makes us so separate and easily manipulable in America anyway right now, but we can get into that later.
That's a deep stuff. Annie, does any of that kind of resonate with you and your experience growing up or fitting into photography?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I was very much an outsider. I still am. I mean, I'm always just the weirdo. And the project started not with the idea of transgender. It started with that idea. And well, I haven't talked about it yet, but my project with kids too is that it has a specific focus, but it's really for everyone. That idea that what maybe makes you different, which is not different really, it's just you, is, you know, your superpower, as they say, is what's beautiful about you. And that if you are allowed, what I was never told is that if that part blossoms, you become this incredibly special person, you know, and that we need to be told that, and we need to be shown that over and over again, and it's not reinforced in society. So my project, although it's focused on one group, is really for everyone. And I focus on kids because it's really hard to unlearn all that, you know, and go through all the stuff you go through when you don't learn that when you're 5. So I really resonate with that. And I do also, we have an individuality in America. I mean, we'll get to that later, because I actually believe that when people are there, like if you become your own individual, maybe the individual you were meant to be, you care about others. Like you actually end up being interdependent because you're not worried about being found out. You're not worried about having to prove who you are. You just are you. And in my project, the kids in my project are some of the most compassionate people I've ever met, you know, even though they're individuals. So anyway, we can get to that. But
let's get back to looking at that project in a minute. And I basically want to just kind of introduce both of your work. So we have a baseline of, you know, everyone who's in on the call or watching later. This will be recorded as well, so people can check it out later. I want to give people kind of just the basic introduction. So Cactus, why don't we start with a music video and maybe set it up for us. Tell us which one you decided to play and some of the ideas behind it.
It's funny actually, because I have 2 queued up and you said we probably only play one, so I had one of them prioritized. Yeah. But what Annie just said makes me change the priority.
Nice. There we go.
Because I have one queued up that is, you know, it's a good example. We had Gotta Be Me, and then later on we came out with a secondary one called Gotta Be You, which features my daughter heavily in it and all that, and I wanted to show that. But then there's another one that we created more recently called Secret Superhero. And it's based on that idea that you said that, you know, we all have latent superhero powers. And that when you're a kid, you know, you don't know what your powers are yet. And that depending on how the situation goes, it can become either your superpower, or it can become what makes you a supervillain, right? Or it can become your superpower, it can become your kryptonite. That's another way to say it. So based on that idea, we created this song called Secret Superhero. And the reason why I was going to play that too is because the idea of the concept of it is a couple of photographers that are going into a school to do the whole school photo day thing. But that school is where all the superheroes are that, you know, haven't quite formed yet, but you'll be able to. We basically just told people, we said, hey, you know, take all your favorite characters from the comic book universe and make your own outfit based on them, but not close enough to get us sued. This is just, you know, people in LA, families in LA, everybody made their own costume. They all showed up and just did fantastic. So this was all shot in one day, some After Effects added later. But the idea being that sort of like, you know, that developing superpower and kind of like how it can go either way at that age so much. Like, are you a villain? Is it your kryptonite? Is it your superhero power? Yeah, that's the underlying theme. It's a bit of eye candy beyond all that.
Cool.
You want me to share it now?
Yeah, let's see it.
I'm a secret superhero. I don't got powers yet. I wonder what I'm gonna get. I wonder what I'm gonna get. I'm a secret superhero. I don't got powers yet. I wonder what I'm gonna get. Evil doers be warned, don't mess with me. I'm a kid that was born with a destiny, and my oath has been sworn to protect the weak. But my powers haven't formed, so I guess we'll see. I'll be adorned with accessories and cool gadgets, tools and magic beneath bulletproof fabric, and that's great. But for now I have to wait in this mask and cape, made of masking tape. At school I concentrate, but mortal men bore me. I'm on a case looking for my origin story, on the lookout for radioactive insects. Lightning hit that tree outside, I should have been next. Tried to fly, ended up in detention. Thought I felt powers, it was just indigestion. It's a question, the answer's in those comics. Am I supersonic, atomic, a robot? I'm a secret superhero. I don't got powers yet. I wonder what I'm gonna get. I'm a secret secret superhero. I don't got powers yet. I wonder what I'm gonna get. I feel like a caterpillar, wondering how his wings will look. Reading books and planning big things for crooks. Writing down one-liners, adjusting words, eating lunch like
justice has just been served.
Tried super speed, but I tripped and fell. No subsonic hearing, but I listen well. Told a girl one time that I'm telekinetic. Try to read her mind, she thinks I'm kinda pathetic. I keep trying to fly and I hate bruises. Try to make things levitate, then make excuses. My fate's elusive, cause of power outages. I won't know who I am until my power hits. And lately it occurs to me, with great power come great uncertainty. I'm a late bloomer, starting to question my future. Am I less Superman than Lex Luthor?
Am I a secret super villain and just don't know it yet? Maybe I'm a threat.
Oh no, I never thought of that. I thought I'd be the last guy to be a bad guy. But maybe I'm one of the evil people from the next sequel. Am I gonna have to shave off all my hair, build a lair in the middle of nowhere and keep the world scared? And strap weapons to zeppelins that explode in 23 seconds? And learn to start sentences with dark emphasis? Am I an arch nemesis? Nah. I'm a secret superhero. I don't got powers yet. I wonder what I'm gonna get. I'm a secret superhero. I don't got powers yet. I wonder what I'm gonna get. I'm too good to be bad. Just as my super friends. So you can be glad. 'Cause good always wins in the end.
Nice. Oh, that was great. I hadn't actually seen that video, so that was awesome.
Yeah, that was fun, man. That was a lot of fun. You know, it's interesting watching it now, because when we did it, we're like, oh, hold on. Uh-oh. Don't worry, I'll take care of this. Stop it. All right, cool. Yeah, when we did it, we were trying to figure out, you know, who would be what character.
Mm-hmm.
One kid was black, and we're like, yo, let's make him Captain America, because why not? Because that's a statement. Because what, you know, like, what are we trying to say? Like, where did America come from? You know, who built it? You know, why shouldn't Captain America be black? And so we did that, and then, you know, like a year or two later, they actually did that in the Marvel universe. They're like, all of a sudden, they're like, now Captain America's black. We like called it.
Nice. Yeah, man. I've always
somebody that looks vaguely but unlitigatably sort of like Captain America.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, man. I've always loved about your music this idea that's very, you know, it's similar to like Shel Silverstein or Maurice Sendak in that you're speaking directly to issues that relate to kids and are very real in kids' lives, but you kind of have these layers of complexity that those kids can grow up, they can become our age or older, and still be getting something out of the complexity around the way you're framing these issues and stuff, which I also like. I think as photographers we do that as well. Like, I've always tried to have a very accessible component to any body of work that I do, that kind of anyone coming into it is going to like be able to tap into what's this about, what are the core themes, and then kind of have just layers and layers and layers beneath that. But how deeply do you want to engage? How far do you want to go down into this, and hopefully have something at any level for whoever wants to go that deep.
Yeah, I think that's, that's non-throwaway art. That's non-disposable culture.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody about this the other day because their kids like getting to that age, and they're a bit of a movie maker and musician, and they're just starting to realize how important it is to create great content for children. And they're just like, yeah, I'm just kind of realizing that that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, well, think about it. Like, I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up watching like He-Man, Star Wars, G.I. Joe, and like the Jim Henson stuff. Now look at what I just said. He-Man, that's a 30-minute commercial for the toys that I would then go buy. With no real, I mean, people will debate me on this, I'm sure, but no real depth. Star Wars, dude spent like 10 years, investigating and researching different religions and philosophies to create something like the Jedi philosophy, which is now an actual religion. You know what I mean? It's got that much depth and layer to it.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe, the ultimate 30-minute commercial. And then Jim Henson, doing stuff like Dark Crystal. Yeah. Now, when I was a kid, I watched all of those equally with the equal amount of excitement, and because I was only getting that first layer. But I'm sure that it was planting all the seeds of all those things in me. So when I was watching Star Wars, I was getting, Eastern mysticism and Buddhist philosophy. And when I was watching G.I. Joe, I was getting, you should go to the store and you should the tank,
Yeah. Totally. So let's now transition over, and Annie, I want to hear. So the first work of yours that I was introduced to was Transgending Self. At the time, I had just started a project called States of Fear, which is in some ways parallel, is portraits and interviews. So I was kind of watching what you were doing, and I feel like we were kind of on a parallel journey in some ways. But I'd love to hear kind of the origin stories of why that project started, and then inevitably, I'm sure that'll transition into your own journey through gender identity and how it related to that.
Let me put, oh no, I won't, because you can't see me. It started briefly. So it started because I had been a straight photojournalist, not straight, sexual identity-wise, but just doing photojournalism. And I realized that portraiture was really what I loved doing and what I was good at. So in that period where I switched to that, I stopped doing stories that had meaning, which is how I got into photography in the first place. And I was contemplating, how do I do this now with portraits? Because in photojournalism, in a story, the story can be in the photos. And I was also thinking, what do I really want to talk about? Because before I was talking about outside things like poverty or, a topic, and this, I wanted to talk about more internal things. And it actually, strangely enough, started by watching protests about police brutality in America, which I think a lot of people don't get the connection, but I was really contemplating, like, how do police get like that? How do people get into a place where they can't think for themselves, where they start doing acts that perhaps they would not do otherwise, and which got me thinking about individuality and living authentically. And I was kind of curious, if someone lives authentically, like, what do they grow up to be? Who do people become if they're really authentic? And so I needed a visual representation of that. And I came up with a lot of ideas, and this one kind of fell into place. And I also realized, so my project is about transgender and non-binary youth, and I started it in 2014. So at the time there was almost nothing in the media. I couldn't find anything, like very, very little.
Wow.
Almost nothing. And so I also realized, and having come out as gay in the 80s and realizing that I have been in the gay community for a long time, and there was no transgender people that were out in my community when I was young and older. And I started talking to my friends, and I was like, that's wrong. Like, there's something really wrong here. that I should know more people that are transgender, and I don't, and it spoke to a problem in society for me. So the more I delved into it, the more I realized how important it was. And then that, hearing the stories from some of the kids helped me figure out my own gender identity, sort of, backwards.
Yeah.
Should I show it?
Yeah, let's see it.
I'll show. All right, so.
And you've
Go ahead.
also, through this work, as you're bringing it, you go ahead and bring it up, but I just wanted to say, as you're bringing it up, there's some really, difficult statistics that kind of, that come with this concept and this body of work that, like when you talk about suicide rates and stuff like that amongst transgender people, it really hits home how difficult this journey is for so many people. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so that is also what, I've been working on this for a long time, and I am an ADHD poster child, so working on anything for more than half a day for me is is not typical. But the suicide attempt rate for transgender and non-binary youth is close to 50%. For transgender boys, last year was higher. It was like 52% attempted suicide, and non-binary is close behind, and then transgender girls is a little bit behind that. But it averages out to about half of them attempt suicide at least once before they turn 20, and that is a staggering rate. The suicide attempt rate for all youth is 14%, which is also high, but there's a big difference. The rate was higher than veterans. And so, but what they found was, so with my project, there's interviews that are written interviews and also audio. And so I have parts of the interviews here. And I interviewed, with the young ones, I interviewed the kids and the parents, because some of them are too young to have a very complex answer, but it also actually is complex. And some of the names are changed. So I also sometimes hesitate before I talk about these kids. The attempt rate is still slightly higher, but when they're supported at school and at home, it drops significantly, pretty close to all youth. And so I also was really inspired that, like, there's so many problems in the world that seem so complicated to solve, and have so many layers, but this was like a no-brainer. We could do something really significant to prevent youth from trying to commit suicide, just by having schools and parents know to support them. I say just because that's also a very difficult thing, unfortunately, but it's changing. So I'll read some of them. I'm going to put them up. So this is interesting. Ellie, she must be like 8 now, but so what the quote says is that Ellie was really shy and didn't talk and didn't have any friends and didn't want to play with anyone. And Ellie had been dressing in girl clothes, right? Was assigned male at birth. And one day in the car, she said, I'm a girl. And so they came up with a name and changed her pronoun. And she ran out of the car and said to another kid, "Hi, my name's Ellie. What's your name?" And her whole personality changed.
Wow. From
that simple from acknowledging who she was instead of hiding. She was happy to play with other kids.
Oh, so beautiful.
This Leo is gender expansive. So Leo is assigned male at birth, and still identifies as a boy, but mostly wears what we would consider girl clothes. And in Brooklyn has had so much harassment and so much from adults and from kids, because they want him to fit into a category that he doesn't fit into. And I love that in the interview, I said, you know, what makes you happy? What makes you sad? What do you want people to know about you? And he said, nobody can tell me what to like.
Wow.
And that's because Leo's parents support him 110%. And they only surround him with people that support him. And so as a 6-year-old, even though in school and sometimes in the playground he has trouble, he's so confident that he has the right to be himself.
And you see that in the portrait. I mean, this one is my favorite out of all of them. It's so arresting. I mean, there's a degree of self-awareness and confidence there. It's exactly what you're speaking to. And I absolutely love this portrait.
Thank you. Yeah, it shows what can happen when you're supported, you know, and he wasn't supported in school and they had to switch schools. But when I'm with him, he'll say, I photographed him a couple times and he'll say, it's not photograph time now. You need to put your camera down. I'm like, well, I don't want to. He's like, no, it's not time for photographs right now. He has this sense that what he thinks is important. And it comes from his parents. Noah here, I won't get into all the stories, but Noah was dressing in what we would say is boy clothes, but his mom wouldn't let him get a haircut. And then he saw on TV that St. Jude commercials where kids lose their hair, and he asked his mother if kids with cancer lose their hair, and she said yes, and he said, how can I get cancer?
Wow. And
so then his mom realized, like, all right, I don't want my kid to be miserable. We need to do something. And he's quite happy now and very, very sweet. This is Justin with his little brother. Like the only time I've ever seen them get along.
So I have a question that kind of relates to what you were talking about with Leo and Leo on Leo's terms. How much of this, is there a sense of collaboration, and to what degree are you kind of like asking people, are you asking these individuals or communicating, you know, how do you want to be represented or anything like that?
Yeah, so for instance, like with Lily here, I flew to their house and I think the night before I just stayed up talking to them, and then we woke up and I spent the whole day with her. So I let them, you know, like, show me what you love, show me your room, let's do this. But then I said, oh, the bed is really beautiful. Would you sit on the bed? And then she did, and she sat the way she sits. You know, so it's this collaboration where I'll see beautiful light or a nice background, and I'll ask them to sit there, but I don't tell them what to do because I want it to be representative of who they are. And then they'll say, oh, I really want a picture with my doll, and we'll do that. And it's kind of a back and forth. You know, in some photos I know when I'm taking them aren't going to work, but it's a collaboration between us. I love that Blake said, I know that I don't fit in all of society's gender roles. For example, I have long hair. I like to paint my nails. I wear makeup to cover up acne and pimples. I cry. I like sewing, and I watch Project Runway with him. What is special about me is that I don't fit into all the male roles, and that's okay too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I love that, again, that confidence that even though I'm a trans boy and I may not look like it to you, I can be myself and I don't have to fit into this role that I'm told I need to fit into.
Yeah.
You know, and then I talked about like that empathy. What Asajj wants to do is help other trans girls and be an influence and an inspiration. So that other girls don't, you know, I love Asajj that I want to slay the gods 100 times over doing things that trans girls have never done.
Nice.
For a 17-year-old,
that's powerful.
That's really amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Leo said, transition is growth. It's not specific to a single moment in time. It's one that is driving me onward and forward into a deeper place that will be for the rest of my life. Pretty intense from an 18-year-old. He said, that's some extra ones in here. These are ones you don't need to see all of.
Wow. Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So I have a lot of different prompts and ways that I could kind of guide the conversation, but I'd love to just kind of step back a little bit and let you guys steer the conversation and talk about whatever you feel like talking about.
I wanted to say, Cactus, that I wish that your music had been around when my kids were little, or I knew about it. I don't think it was. They're 21 now. So no, and it was hard. As a parent, I want to follow their lead, but some of the things, once they had a choice that they were drawn to, the message, the music might sound great, but the words matter, you know, and the words were not empowering and not inspiring. And I think when you're older, you can choose to listen to that and not take it in, but I really wanted music that was giving them a message that they're special and they can do something, and I didn't find much of it, you know, except when they're 2. You know, so
Yeah,
it's lovely.
it's hard to like I'm trying to think about which avenue to go here. All right, so let me say one thing that I always come back to when I start thinking deeply on things is, you know, our biological natures, right? Like we prioritize danger signals. That's what we do as animals, right? I think that's at the root of why music and art, a lot of times, that is about intense friction, whether that is violence, whether that is sex, whether that is, you know, money. These super intense things, they get a lot more eyes and ears. And I used to think, you know, when I was younger and had a little bit more of a, I don't know, conspiratorial mind state, I was like, that's what they're doing, man. They're just trying to poison us. They're trying to poison our minds and keep us down, man. They're trying to keep us dumb and sick, man. And it's like, as I get older, I'm like, no, they're giving us what we're asking for. Like, and we're asking for it not because we're sick and not because there's something wrong with us, but because biologically we prioritize danger signals. So if I show you one song that's about how everything is a, you know, a happy, you know, marshmallow fluff land, and it's beautiful and it's all in major keys, you know, and maybe it has an accompanying video that's like a beautiful cartoon that's in pastels and whatnot. And then if I show you something else, which is like, you know, super hardcore action movie centric, minor key beats, you know, with people showing images that seem dangerous, the mind, I think, you know, maybe not of children, but I think that, you know, kids aren't kids that long necessarily. Childhood only lasts as long as, you know, it has those parameters on it. You know, pretty quickly you're drawn to the more dangerous things. So I think the key is, how do you make things that have these messages that are so important that are also exciting enough to compete with the danger signals, right? And, you know, it kind of comes back to Leo, right? He's a little badass, isn't he?
He is such a badass.
And, you know, there's a way of expressing the idea that to be yourself and to be kind and, you know, to be artistic and to be different are some of the most radical and badass things that you could possibly do. So to create that, you know, musically, artistically, visually, I think that's important because, I mean, I got drawn into it. You even said, you know, a second ago, you said, you know, when you're older, you can watch those things and not be as influenced. I'm not sure that's true. I think that we watch those things and we walk around with a little ghost of that living in our head for a minute where we're like, yeah, I'm a badass man. You know, it took me a long time to understand the difference between rebel and criminal. And based on what I was watching and listening to as a kid, you know, I thought originally that the only way you could be an outlaw was to be, you know, a criminal and sort of a bad person. And I walked down that path for a little while before I finally realized that that's not what I was looking for. What I was looking for was to be an outlaw in the sense of not to fit in with a society that I didn't agree with, you know, or not to fit in with a idea that we should all be the same, but that there were ways of doing that and ways of being a rebel that were not only as positive and as kind as, you know, fitting in, but in my opinion, and I think you've said this a couple times already, Annie, more kind and more positive. You know, that idea that if you do get to your authentic self, that you've already gone past so many levels of inauthenticity that you know how to do that with other people too, and how to create that in other people. And that's when you start getting to real compassion and real connection.
And I, you know, individuals were Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. Like, they were individuals who had huge impact on good in our society. You know, they were not following any path that they were told to follow. So, you know, absolutely, you know, if you follow the true inside you, but it's hard. You know, it's hard.
It is.
But it's less hard if it's less hard if you grow up like Leo, being told, yeah, you know, he might have to be contained at some point, but let him be huge until he needs to be contained, because he won't. I don't think he'll ever feel like, nah, what do you mean I'm supposed to do? No, you know, like, no, but he's kind and sweet and caring, and, you know, because he didn't have to unlearn all of that.
Yeah, there's a project I'm working on right now that has to do with folk tales from different countries and kind of reimagining them as you know, hip hop, and also working with the symphony on that level. You know, it's interesting. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he's coming into the space of family hip hop, and he's Black. He's actually from Durham, and you know, we were talking about how the fact of like family music, the scene right now is overwhelmingly white.
Mm-hmm.
And we were kind of discussing some ideas on why that is. And I mean, certainly a lot of it comes down to the gatekeepers and to this sort of idea of family music as, you know, a dude with a guitar essentially doing some version of folk, you know, which I have a lot of friends that do that. There's nothing wrong with that, but that shouldn't be the only version of it, you know?
Yeah.
And we also ended up talking about the idea of childhood itself, right? Like, if you look at it historically, childhood's not that old. Like, you know, if you even go back to the time before child labor laws, you know, the childhood and the way that we think about it, and in the way that you're talking about Leo has, and the way that, you know, I'm directing my music towards, that idea of kind of like a container where, you know, innocence and some form of naivety and some form of like self-discovery and kind of like being in a vulnerable state, you know, a cocoon, I suppose, a psychic cocoon, is a thing that is respected. Like, you know, prior to, I don't know exactly when child labor laws happened, but prior to that, that didn't exist.
Right.
You know, back in medieval times, where I'm looking at these Grimm's fairy tales right now, the original versions, it certainly didn't exist. There. But we were also talking about how, you know, sometimes in certain communities of America that doesn't exist.
Right.
You know, you can be in a more at-risk community and you're not going to necessarily have a childhood. Like, you're going to, that moment when you come online and start to understand yourself and have self-awareness, that might only be a year or two away from that time that you're expected to start acting like a grown-up, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's an interesting thing, like, because childhood is a cocoon, you know, like, we have these big heads, you know, like, back to the biology again. So we're born way quicker. We're gestating on the outside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what childhood is in a way supposed to be, is that psychic or mental gestation period where we're supposed to absorb a little bit more about what the world is and who we are. And I think a lot of people don't get the chance to do that.
No, and it's not, I mean, it's, even without child labor laws and even without being in certain communities, you know, there's so much trauma that many kids now always, you know, people still don't have, you know, that kind of childhood, what we're saying, that just innocence and getting to play. But there's a poet, David White, who I love quite a bit, and his mother, I love him a lot, actually, but he tells that his mother's mother died when his mother was 13, and she was kicked out, expelled from Ireland, I guess, and she had to work, and she went to labor, but she had this joy inside her already, and so after work, she would go play in the playground, even though she was a teenager. And he was raised by this woman that still, even though she had all this trauma, had that sense of joy and looking at life, and, you know, maybe a little bit old to be playing in the playground, but would just go play after work and didn't have this idea that there was anything wrong with her life, you know? So even within difficult situations, if you have that, if there's a message inside you that I can still explore and still grow, it still can happen, you know, it still can be there.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
like someone taught her that, right? So somewhere before her mother died, she had this understanding that there's pleasure in life and there's play and there's beauty before
In some
that
ways,
happened.
it's only like it's like a permission to be given in a way, where it's just, you know, it's okay to be silly. It's okay to, you know, I mean, most of the time what people do is they rush away from childhood because they're embarrassed by it. And then they spend the rest of their life trying to regain aspects of it. You know, like they run away from it trying to grow up too quick. And then they like go to classes trying to find the flow state, go to, you know, creativity seminars. And you're like, dude, you had all that.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, and I think it's important though to have this, like your music, because also now especially kids are on the computer all the time. I mean, way more than even before. But you pick up, you know, David White's mother, there was no computer, so she picked it up from someone. A lot of stuff my girls got even was from TV, right? It wasn't, and even when I was growing up, we had one black and white TV in my house. There was color TV and a lot of people had it, but we didn't. I was outside a lot, but I still believed the Brady Bunch. You know, I thought my family everything's wrong and that's real. So the information that young people are getting largely comes from media, and it's really important what media they're, you know, music, art, TV, seeing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think so. And it's and what the motive is, you know, because that's with Brady Bunch and all of that, you know, and He-Man and G.I. Joe, you know, that's what I've been thinking about individuality lately is, and I've been thinking about the gotta be me thing. I'm already very happy with some of the things that you said because they've kind of connected some dots in my head, which I think are great, about authenticity being true connection, and, you know, so it's not one or the other. But you know, I think there's this idea of the American dream, and this idea is any individual can be anything they want. Subtext meaning rich.
Right.
And so already you have people ready to divide apart. You have people ready to say, well, I'm the one that deserves to be rich, so I'm the one that will do anything in order to get it. And I'm the one that can't get too close to anybody around me because I might have to leave them to go become rich. And yeah, that post that you were talking about, Mike, there's this, I think his name is Robert Wright. I quote him enough that I should certainly remember this. What is his name? But if you look up this quote, you'll definitely see his name next to it. He said, I know I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but he said the reason the American proletariat will never unite is because they all believe themselves to be temporarily embarrassed millionaires. You know, and the idea that we think that being a individual millionaire by ourselves or with a few other millionaires or whatever would be a preferable existence to actually having, you know, more of a close to the ground existence, but with a whole lot of people who we love and who have our back, you know, that we don't recognize that as true stability and a more realistic path to happiness.
Right.
You know, that's something that I've only understood after kind of traveling outside of this country. You know, I think that idea permeates everything so much in this country, and, you know, maybe in the Western world, although I think I see that even less in Canada and even, you know, less in Europe than I do here. But, you know, you go to someplace like India or whatever, or, you know, you talk to indigenous folks from Australia or something like that, you start to realize that it's like that connection that some people have with each other and with the land around them and whatnot. It's like that's something that's so valuable that if you could offer that to somebody, they would pay millions of dollars for it. But you can't, because millions of dollars doesn't get it for you. You know?
Right. Well, it's like the American idea of the individual is killing us, right? And it's the individual's right to become rich, which doesn't exist, right? So this fake idea, but also no one gets anywhere without other people. It doesn't exist. You would die if you were born and left alone. You would die.
Yeah.
You cannot get anywhere without people supporting you. So the idea is wrong. It doesn't exist, but it's this idea that keeps getting perpetuated, and that isn't the individual that, you know, the beautiful thing in our society that was before, I don't know if it is now, is that the freedom to be gay, the freedom to be yourself, right? Which it does not exist, but that doesn't mean that we don't rely on each other and we don't help each other and we're not there for each other. And that's where it gets convoluted, and it's gotten convoluted, and I don't even know what America is right now, but
well, that's it. What I'm trying to figure out, especially in terms of, you know, putting messages into my music that I believe will be the seeds of thought and perhaps identity for children. You know, I'm just reassessing that idea of individuality being so primary. I think that it's important, but I also think that it almost has to be weighted on both sides equally. Like, it has to be this idea of, you know, yes, like, look inside, find yourself, look outside, find yourself. But when you do that, then bring that back to your people and find a way that you can build in order to, you know, help other people that are alone, help them find themselves, and make sure that we bring that back to the group, you know, because I don't know, it just seems like sometimes I'm out there with this gotta be me type message. And I know that it's important because it was important for me to understand that, and it would have been important for me to understand that a long time ago. And I've, you know, seen very positive effects. I mean, I've been doing this for about 13 years now, you know, so that's long enough for me to have 2 times already being in Asheville, where I went to a coffee shop or a restaurant, and, you know, the barista, or, you know, person cooking in the back ran out, and they were like, "Oh shit, like, are you Secret Agent 23 Skidoo?" And they're like, "I listened to you from the time I was 7 onwards. I love you so much." And, you know, then they expressed that it did help kind of like form some view of the world, some view of themselves. So I understand that it's potent and important, and I understand that individuality aspect of it is a big deal. But then sometimes I just see these days how much that can manipulate you, how much that idea of like, no, it's important that you understand. Like, even, I'll tell you what, even what's going on right now with the protesting, I see this idea of like, wow, I'm finally getting it. I bought White Fragility and I read it. I watched the 13th, and everything has changed so much for me. And I'm like, cool. Did you do anything else? Yeah, I've changed so much. And I'm just like, yeah, but did you then donate or like protest? Are you gonna like do any kind of canvassing? Like, are you gonna do, you know, and just this idea of having a radical new view of the world around you is enough.
Right.
Because
Well,
you change.
Yeah, in terms of individuality, I was actually listening to a Dharma talk, which is like a Buddhist speech, but he or she, I don't know who was saying it, is like the American individual to do what I want, right? That's not the individuality that does something. But when I find what my strength is, then I use it to work within society and make society whole. So if I'm, you know, if someone discovers they're an artist, then the art, you know, art used to be for society, it wasn't individual. So if you were great at painting, you know, Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel, not for himself, right? And we have this beauty. So it's the individuality of like, who are you? What do you have to give? And then you give it. Right?
I want to interject too, and kind of point out, I think a lot of people in the position that you were talking about, Cactus, where it's kind of like you're educating yourself, but then it's like, well, what did you do, or what did you do with that information? A lot of people kind of stop there. And I wanted to talk about kind of the way that you, and I know you probably don't want to big up yourself here, but like the way that you, before, you know, this became like the moment that everyone's having the reckoning, like, you know, months before this, you kind of restructured your band in a way that I think was really powerful. And it also, in multiple ways, one way that I thought was really powerful is that it came from like your daughter being 18 years old now, and you actually asking her for advice and taking that advice and completely restructuring what you're doing. and also just in terms of the humility it takes to ask what can I do, and actually be willing to make changes, whatever changes that you are in the position to make, to kind of step back. So if no one knows what I'm talking about, so would you mind kind of talking about that, what that process was?
Sure. Yeah, so this was about almost 2 years ago at this point. I was trying to figure out kind of like, you know, we've been doing the same thing with our live show for a long time. And, you know, it was awesome. It was great. We have this, at that point, we have a live show that was kind of based somewhat on Motown, you know, so we had like these crazy purple suits and everything. And we had like, you know, moves, synchronized moves. And I had my band who travels with me, we usually travel as a trio. It's myself, it's my friend Debrisa, who's this beautiful Black woman who just sings pipes of gold. And then Ryan Barber, who is also a Black dude, and he sings amazingly. They both rap a bit, they dance. That's my East Coast group. I also have people on the West Coast I travel with. We also have break dancers that we travel with. They prefer to be called B-boys for those in the hip hop community. But if I say B-boys, most of the time people don't know what I'm talking about. So you know what I'm talking about. And anyway, I just realized after a while, and especially after this conversation with Saki, because I was like, okay, we need to make this as potent as possible. We need to make this, the live show, you know, do as much to take these ideas that we're putting out there and really, you know, really have them resonate with the audience and with the kids as much as possible. So, you know, if we're going to update things, what should we do? And Saki, who was 18 at the time, was she 18? Either 17 or 18 at the time. I guess she'd be 17 at that time. She's like, well, you know, Dad, in these times, as a white cisgender male, you know, sometimes the best thing that you can do is take a step back. And I was like, all right, yeah, what does that mean? You know, what does that mean to you? Like, what do you see when you say that? And, you know, and we talked about it, and eventually what it came to is this new thing that we're doing. So usually we travel as Secret Agent 23 Skidoo, and that's you know, I kind of use that as a name for the band and also for myself. But now we're transforming that into the Secret Agency, and you know, which also has that double meaning of like everyone has their secret agency, and you need to find your agency, you know. And the idea is for each person to equally share the spotlight. You know what I'm saying? For me to visually step to the back, and each person to step up in the middle and to show visually that we're supporting them equally and that they're leading the show. And, you know, I mean, that's just, that means representation. You know, that means that every single person in the audience, for the most part, gets to like look and see somebody who they connect with and can see that person as the leader and the person who's speaking the message. Yeah, it took me a while to wrap my head around that, you know, because I was like, well, I have these messages about equality and about equity and about, you know, understanding each other and kindness and individuality and all that. But, you know, it's true. It finally comes down to the fact of like, as much as that is true, that means something else. The exact same song means something else coming out of a different face. Mm-hmm. Because when people look and they can see themselves in the person who's saying it, you know, things change meaning. I mean, we even did some things where, you know, we took songs that we were already doing and just switched parts. So now they're in the lead of it, right? So we have this one song called Luck. And this song, you know, the hook is basically, luck is kind of a funny thing. If you believe it, you can have it. And that's the idea of like, you know, you have to believe in luck. And then if you believe in luck, you know, anything can happen. And I remember at one point being on stage rapping that and being like, wow, you know, you could almost just switch out the word white privilege with luck and this song would still work. And so then, you know, now Debrisa, who is, as I said, you know, Black female, she's the one who raps that song now. And that's a completely different message now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's divorced from the idea of privilege. And as a matter of fact, it defies the absence of it. You know what I mean? It means that even if you're somebody in a position of not having traditional privilege, if you believe in yourself, that belief is important. And that is, you know, that's not the end of it. It's not the end of it just to believe in yourself, but that can give you enough hope and enough energy and enough strength and will to act on it and try to better your position, and also to try to better the position of the people around you. It can really change the idea. It can change the idea by who's saying these things. And yeah, so it's good. We created that. We created, new outfits, new moves, new logo, new stage dressing. Wrote a bunch of new songs. We're ready to go. And on March 8th, we went down to Miami and we played our first show as the Secret Agency, and it was awesome. And right before going on stage, I looked at the band. I was like, let's enjoy this, because this might be the last time we play live for a very long time. And that's what it's been. So, I mean, we're ready to roll as soon as the world opens back up. But yeah, I'm excited about that too, and it's like, yeah, it's important, and sometimes, and I mean, I think that's something I'd like to open up for discussion too, because so if I wrote the song and I'm writing it for somebody and then they get up and they perform it, because we understand representation, but they also understand that I've been writing songs for 25 years. Does that feel inauthentic? And I mean, I'm asking, I know how I feel, but I also think that's something I want to hear from other people. Like if you saw Debrisa up there singing that and crushing it, and you were so inspired, and then somebody said, yeah, it's good, right? You see that white guy behind her that's doing backups? He wrote that? Like, would that feel like a letdown? Would that feel like a betrayal, do you think? Not used to getting asked questions, are you, moderator?
Oh, we asking me? Okay.
I'm asking both.
Okay. I mean, I don't think so. I do think, when you hear a songwriter perform a song, and then you find out later that they didn't write that song, it does lose a little bit of the potency that comes with those words. That's true. But I think I don't think there's anything wrong with if someone resonates with a message that they then echo that message. And I'm sure Debris, can write her own stuff too, and will continue to as she's elevated to this kind of new, more forward role. I have no doubt that her own voice will come through and shine. And I think it's very natural for during this transitional time that, you shouldn't have to completely redo, write all new songs. You already have this thing that's been built, a message that the three of you have been sharing together with the world. So I think just continuing to, I love what you've done just in kind of the restructuring, who's the most visible and forward. And then as it evolves, it'll be interesting to see their voices, Ryan and Debrise's voices. And if they, if they choose to kind of use those voices to write more of their own stuff. And, that's up to them, I guess. I'm sure you encourage them to do that if they want to, but also if they just want to spit your stuff, that's they can choose to do that too.
Yeah, what we've been doing, and I want to hear your input on that too, Annie, if you'd be so kind. What we've been doing recently is, we started kind of with that idea of taking songs that made sense for each personality, and then, kind of switching parts. But then what we've been doing recently is we've kind of grown the idea into, we're the secret agency and we're here to find intelligence. And so the idea is that there's all these different forms of intelligence that kids have and people have. And to let them understand that in America, I think, and this is partially because of the, you are your profession. You see people, what's the first question you ask them? What do you do? And we're trying to promote the idea that the things that we primarily think of as intelligence in this country a lot of times are academic, but things like interpersonal skills or intrapersonal skills or, just little kind of quirks that are people's superpower. Like some people, they drive someplace and they could get back right away without a GPS. Other people will get lost 3 blocks away. These are all forms of intelligence. And so we're trying to figure out, kind of what our own intelligences are, innate intelligences are. And then I try to write songs from their perspective of that. And then also from their style, like, I don't know if you know what New Jack Swing is, but Ryan Barber loves him some New Jack Swing. So we wrote a New Jack Swing song about the power of laughter, because he's been through some hard stuff in his life, and, you know, he can make jokes about all of it, and that's a superpower. And that's something that we're trying to teach too. But yeah, it's cool watching their identities emerge, their secret identities. But yeah, what do you think of that variety of things, Annie?
Two avenues to go in from that. So my daughters are Black, so I've had this conversation with them a lot. Not a lot. I mean, you know, we talk about everything. So from their perspective, I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but if they love a song, they love a song. And yes, it's disappointing if a white person wrote it. So they can have both, but they also need to have songs that are fully coming from their perspective, you know, if I could put words in their mouth. But it doesn't discount the other stuff that they love, you know? So I think it's being open to both, maybe, yeah. Mm-hmm. I love that you're thinking about it, and it's not easy, I guess. It's not an easy answer, because you don't want to stop writing songs, right? But no, but then it's allowing other voices in, maybe, you know? So I actually have a similar thing, that because I'm having to shoot remotely now, I did a last remote shoot, and I had almost no control over the shoot. It's actually coming out tomorrow, and they're beautiful. And I realized that because there was a person with the person who was photographing the person and the kid, and because she was the old stepmom, her intimacy with the father and kid was there. And so I had direction, but what she did was something that I couldn't even do. And then I thought, oh, not have to, but if I let go of being the photographer, because the message is what's important, these other beautiful images can emerge, right? And especially if I'm photographing people that are different than I am, you know? If someone had the same background, came from the same town, I might be able to enter their experience and make it really authentic. Yeah. But when I let go to that experience, I didn't expect it. You know, I was like, oh, I think I can do the rest of them like this. And it's hard because they look like my photos, but I didn't. Someone else had the power. But I really was like, oh, I like that. I like that, even though it's hard.
Yeah, it's that same humility that.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, but if the message that I want, you know, for what the ultimate goal is, it's more attaining the ultimate goal that I have with them. And so it's like letting go of my ego to facilitate that happening, however it happens. Yeah, and I think especially, I thought about it, especially in photography, entering communities that are not your own. You know, there is something that's really nice and important about an outsider perspective, but I think it has to be then presented as an outsider perspective, because you can't ever understand, you know, especially when things are so different, the way someone sees the world. And so I think it's somewhat similar, you know.
Can you kind of, just to step backwards a little bit, explain what shooting remotely means?
Yes. So, I mean, the way I've done it has been a little bit complicated, and it got less complicated, but I'm sitting in my apartment photographing someone in Texas. And the way I did it at first was putting the phone in front of the computer. I could see everything. We pick a location and I have them set it up and do everything, and I direct them, and the phone is static in front of the computer. Last time I had the stepmom hold the phone, and there was another computer behind her, so I could see what was happening with the dad and the kid, but I couldn't exactly know what she was photographing. I was just telling her where the light is good and what was nice and what the kid could do, and they came out beautiful, but I'm not leaving my apartment. So I could photograph. It's a different, you know, anyone in the world, but and during COVID, it's crucial, you know. But then it also, for my project, because my intention with it was to like you said, Cactus, like it was really important that I think we need to see ourselves, right? Kind of specifically, like if you really go like, you know, I'm a mixed, I have a white dad and a black mom, and I want to be a doctor, but I want to be a doctor that works with people with one leg, you know, just something. And you see that, you know, the more specific, you're like, oh my God, I can do that, you know? Like the more specific you see yourself reflected, the more you know you're okay and you could do that. And so I wanted the project to be incredibly diverse, especially in terms of location and religion. And I found out doing that became very expensive. So then this allows me to do that and also now let go a little bit of the image so that the families and kids in the photograph have even more say in what it looks like. But it's not as fun, I can tell you.
Yeah.
It's definitely not as fun, but the world is a little different right now. So
Yeah. So I know you kind of told us you had a hard out at 6:50, which is coming.
Can go a little bit over now because the thing was switched.
Okay. Well, you know, one thing I wanted to make sure we got in before we ended, and this is maybe an abrupt change of subject, but I wanted to make sure we fit it in before we ended. So when we talked, Annie, maybe a month ago or something like that, you said something that I thought was really profound in regard to individuality, which was kind of, and I'll let you say it in your own words and kind of explain it, but just on the topic of how you expressing your own individuality and saying who you are in terms of your gender, in some ways limited the way people see you and kind of put you in a box that's hard to get out of. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, and I know this happens to everyone, you know, that saying I'm non-binary, doing it really publicly, you know, before, like when I was young, being gay was a big deal. So now I'm this non-binary gay person. And sometimes a lot, like with my work, that's most of the work I've gotten over the past 2 years. And even people will approach me and that's all they want to talk about. You know, and they want to tell me about their trans friends and I'm like, I actually want a sandwich. You know, I wasn't thinking about that. And that becomes a little bit of a problem when we start acknowledging, I know some Black friends, like all of a sudden they're the Black friend now. And people are calling them and it's like, wait a minute, you know, you become narrow, people see you, but then you become narrowed down to this very small part of your identity. And it's only a large part because of society. But inside you, the whole of you is important. You know, one of the moms said this about her daughter. She said being transgender is actually the least interesting thing about her. And I would agree, you know. So somehow by being seen, you're almost seen less. You become that minority, you know, that non-dominant thing that you are. You become that. And we have to be, as a society, I think, really mindful of not doing that. You know, it becomes like these microaggressions, right? That's all people see you at. For me, I've become this non-binary person to a lot of people, and it's hard. It's like being seen, but almost not being seen at all.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's I'll say from the other side of that like you can do a lot of research, right, about a specific you know, lifestyle or identity type or however you want to say, and you'll never quite understand anything about it until you actually talk to somebody and can ask questions and can just have conversations and whatnot. But at the same time, you know, anybody who does enough research or knows enough people understands that you don't make somebody into the spokesman for what they are, because that's, you know, that's not, it's so reductive of who they are as a person that it's, you know, it's oppressive in the exact way that you don't want to be, but when you're trying to find that kind of information out. I remember I had a situation where I realized all of a sudden through, again, conversations with my daughter that, like, you know, I have Black friends, I have Latinx friends, I have gay friends, you know, I have women friends that have been through trauma and whatnot. And so I've been able to have all those conversations, and I understood at least as much as somebody can understand not being in those cultures, you know what I mean? But I understood some of the nuances of it. And so I felt a little bit more like, just like I got it, you know what I mean? But with transgender, I didn't know anybody personally. And anytime I did meet somebody, as much as a big part of my mind wanted to just corner him and be like, tell me everything, you know? That's not what you do. Like, that's the shittiest thing you could do.
Right.
So I was stuck in this boat of being like, you know, I've watched documentaries and I've read articles and I've, you know, tried to dive into it, especially when it comes to children, you know, having that experience. And I was like, but I still just feel so much like I don't get it, you know? And it was kind of like a impasse because I wasn't willing to, you know, corner somebody and say that. And then I was over beers having a conversation with my friend Jim Lazoon, who I hope you get to meet him one day. I know Mike knows him. Fantastic human being, and runs a company in Asheville where he has just a bunch of big purple buses going around having comedy tours of Asheville. And he's just a fantastic person. I was telling him this, and he says, "Oh, do you want me to do that?" And I was like, "Do I want you to do what?" He's like, "Do you want me to put together a tea party with my transgender friends in which you can ask them anything for as long as you like?" I was like, "Yes, I want you." And so we did that. And, you know, I think it was cool because, you know, it was a situation where the role of spokesman or representative or whatever did not get thrust on anybody.
Right.
But the question set up ahead of time was like, look, you know, this guy really is, you know, wants to ask questions. He's not going to come and ask the first like 10 obvious questions.
Right.
He's going to, you know, do his research, come and, you know, really try to find things out because I just wanted to understand.
Right.
And so the people who were there were really interested in being asked those questions. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And really, like, the thing that I more than anything took away from it was George, who was speaking to me and who had transitioned in the 80s, and just brilliant, and this acerbic wit that I just love on people, you know, like just snarky as shit. You know, after I asked a few questions, George was like, you know, I don't mind answering any of these questions, and we can go on, and it's fine. But just to let you know, you're asking these questions in such a way that you have boxes in your head, and you want to take whatever this new experience is and cut it up into pieces that fit in those boxes so that then you can walk away and know which boxes it fits into. And what I want to ask you is, what if this doesn't fit in any of those boxes? And yeah, it just completely changed my mind about not only that experience, but a lot of things. I realized, you know, in that moment and in the weeks afterwards that I was like, wow, I'm doing that with lots of things.
Yeah.
Like I have this idea that I want to continue to learn and to understand more about the world, but I also have this idea that I already have all the boxes in my head that all that information is going to fit into.
Yeah.
And it's a different experience to actually know that you either need to break open the boxes or get new ones, or, you know, maybe not have walls in there at all or something.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it made me really, I mean, for me, for work, it's been difficult, but it also, with people sometimes gets difficult. The beautiful thing about those experiences, though, I can take them and then apply it to like, oh, this, I mean, I could see how I did it when I was young. You know, if I saw someone from India, if I met someone, I wanted to ask them about India, you know, and they're not walking around thinking about the fact that they're from India, right? So instead of making it another time, you become this thing, and racism comes from that clearly. You know, a police officer sees a Black man and they see this one thing. They don't see anything else, you know, so we do need to, being curious and like wanting to know is great, you know, and what you did is great. And then it's like taking that and not placing that person in that, right, box. And I think we all have to unlearn that. You know, learning about racism and everything, I thought back on all the times I placed someone because I was curious and excited, but I placed someone in a box they didn't ask to be placed in that moment. You know, I made them into a very small thing instead of reading a book about India, going on reading a book, and then if I met someone who wanted to talk to me about it later on, but instead of making someone uncomfortable, you know, and saying, oh, I see this thing about you that is really small, but I'm making it into a large thing in this moment. And you didn't ask me to do that, you know? And yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine a little bit, you know. I think the only way in which I can imagine that, honestly, because, you know, I'm a member of every single one of the groups that's the broadest. But, and not that this is in any way comparable, but the only way that I can imagine that is that, you know, since I won a Grammy, half of the times I'm introduced is like, hi, this is my friend Cactus, he won a Grammy. I'm like, well, thank you for reducing me to one experience. I appreciate it.
Right, yeah, I mean, it is similar, you know, in that, you know, I know people that are very successful. Sometimes they're like, is that person only talking to me because I have this, you know, do they only want to know me for that, right? That becomes another side of that, right? You become that thing instead of Cactus, right? Oh, and by the way, this cool thing happened.
And it becomes like shorthand for the entire experience of your life. And,
yeah.
and honestly, what I've noticed is like, if there is a thing about a person that becomes the obvious shorthand for their identity, and you begin to ask them about that, you're going to get the most stale answers ever, because that's a thing they've already been asked a billion times.
A billion times.
If you want to know something, if you really want to know who they are, ask them a question they've never been asked before. And, you know, then you're going to get a real answer from the moment. And that's when you start to have authentic experiences with people, you know, which is, I think, you know, kind of circling back to the beginning of the very first thing you said, or one of the very first things you said in this conversation, about the idea of like, when you do understand your individual self, and you understand how to get past the layers of all those boxes to the real authenticity, then you also know how to do that with other people. And that creates that type of real connection.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, I think we should probably call it. We're at the hour-and-a-half mark, which is usually when I try to cut things off. But man, I feel like we could just keep going forever. This has been a really beautiful conversation, and I love what both of you have shared and brought to it. It was everything that I hoped it would be. But yeah, thank you both so much.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Putting it together, and it was really good to meet you, Annie.
You too. Maybe we'll do it in person.
Yeah. Someday.
Someday when people meet in person again.
Yeah.
Do you live in New York right now?
I do, and I'm trying to leave. So
Well, if you ever hear of any show of the secret agency around any place you are, get in touch and you're on the guest list, okay?
Awesome. Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.
Bye.